Amber. My baby mama. Amber. Just saying that name fills me with a lot of positive energy. I just smiled and laughed. Um, it's a little bit complicated. Let's talk about it. Amber is my second baby mother. Um, she means a lot more to me than that. Saying that she's my second baby mother, um, man, it feels weird because she's not a baby mama. You know what I mean? She is a outstanding, fine, respectable, admirable, classy woman who I was fortunate and honored to have a child with, a beautiful daughter. And I met Amber actually at one of my shows initially. So I used to be called the Man Prime. The Man Prime was a local artist, Green Bay and Appleton, and I hosted a lot of parties in Appleton, and I promoted a lot of shows for this awesome guy named Darren Higgs. He used to bring guys like YG and Yin Yang Twins and Juvenile and just a bunch of other big acts like that to the area. And I was the biggest promoter. And I was also a rapper, of course. I knew a mutual friend of Amber's. The way that I knew the mutual friend, she used to do photography for me. And I was single, and I remember the photographer was at my house one night, and she's like, "Hey, I got this awesome friend that you should meet. You know, her name's Amber. She tells me all these lovely things about Amber and shows me a picture of her. And I'm talking about Amber is a knockout, gorgeous. She's a beauty. You know what I mean? So I'm like, what? Of course. And so I had a show at Brauhaus. I think it was maybe the following weekend, or it actually could have been that night, something like that. And I got to meet Amber. And I still remember how it happened. So the photographer, and I keep calling her photographer because I think her name was Marie, but as I say that, I don't think that was her name, but whatever. The photographer was like, "Hey, you know, Amber's here." It was right after my show. Amber walks through the door, and this was in February of 2014. So it's cold outside. So she has a winter jacket on, and normally when people go into the club, you know, they go and hang their jacket up. So she walks into the club, and I'm like, "Oh, hey, you know, what's up?" I'm so excited to meet her. She's like, "Hey, let me go hang up, you know, my jacket." And I stopped her, you know what I mean, politely, you know what I mean, whatever. I stopped her, and I'm like, "No, like I gotta, like, whoa, you know, I'm too excited. I can't let you go hang up your coat without bombarding you, basically, in a cute way." And hey, I remember that smile that she had, and she was like, "What?" You know, and bam, we hit it off. We hit it off. Giggles, smiles, all the vibes. I think even after we hung out at the club, you know, we went our separate ways after the club that night, but we talked on the phone for hours into the morning. And I think I might have slept for a couple hours and hey, woke up, we talked again. And I think maybe by the second or third day, I'm like, no, I'm in love. Like, I need Amber. You know what I mean? And I know she felt the same way about me. The relationship progressed really fast. You know, we were head over heels. You know, she was living in Oshkosh, Wisconsin at that time, and I was living in Green Bay, Wisconsin at that time. And I think maybe within 2 months or something like that, I'm like, you know, I decided to give up my house and move in with her. And just so much things. So, chicken tenders, that's her favorite food. I think our first date, we went out to Perkins. What was cute about that time, you know, other than every moment, you know, she was like, hey, look over there. You know, there's a couple kissing or something. And I look over there. I'm like, what? And then when I turn around and look back at Amber, she's stealing one of my French fries. You know what I mean? Like, she's just so cute. And so, boom. And we definitely were, very physically passionate about each other. And that led to her being pregnant within, man, just a few months of us meeting. And I still remember when she told me she was pregnant. We were in her gray Pontiac G6. And we were at a Quick Trip on College Avenue in Appleton. She, in the car, told me she nervously said that she was pregnant. And I erupted in excitement. I'm like, what? Of course. I'll spend the rest of my life with you. And I was delighted at the idea of having a daughter with her. To this day, I am still as much delighted, if not more so. Even though we're not together. Even though she has no romantic interest in me. But I remember that moment, so excited. And I remember her telling me at some point, it could have been right then and there, or maybe at a later point, she was like, I was so happy that you were excited. She was like, I ain't gonna lie. She was like, I was, ready for you to have a different reaction. That's awesome. Awesome. So these are some of the more glowing moments, and I wanted to highlight these because these are the pillars, I think, of what she held on to for so long. Why she was in love with me for so long. Back then, I, as the man prime, and also still not fully confronting how I can grow from the situations I'd been through early on in life. When you have traumatic situations, some people like to use them as an excuse to be a shitty person. Others like to use them as fuel to change. And at that point in my life, I was definitely using, my experiences to allow myself to be a shitty person. Basically, to reason with myself as to why I was a shitty person within some of my intimate relationships. So what does that mean? So, my mother never really had healthy relationships with men. They would yell instead of talk things out. And when they yelled, they would usually leave after yelling. And after they leave, all I know is when they came back, shit was fucked up. So, hey, I followed a similar pattern of, confronting issues, specifically within the context of relationships, of those intimate relationships. I just didn't address problems correctly. And I use them to fuel, more negative actions that cause further division that I always wind up regretting because I'm like, yo, I love this woman. Why am I acting like this? I know there has to be a better way. And, fortunately, obviously, I grew out of that. I'm proud to say I'm a much better man today. Wanted to give that backstory because there was a few, different things that were, probably disappointing, if not more than that, for her. So I've always been a ladies' man. Cool. Now, when I was with her, this is, yeah, it's kind of hard to say the story. I'm trying to say it respectfully because I know this video may or may not get back to her. And I want to illustrate it respectfully to her and her pain, but also from my vantage point. Because, of course, they always say there's two sides to the story, hers, his, in the middle. And I'm going to do my best to meet in the middle here. So, I always was a lady man. Cool. At this time, being the man prime, I'm really starting to get my first taste of being like a celebrity, even though I was a local celebrity at that time. And so there was definitely the attention from women was incredible. And at that time, I'm an immature, 20-something-year-old, egotistical, and of course, I'm, enjoying myself. Let me just highlight a situation. That would help here. There was this girl named Alex that I met while I was with Amber. And I'd met other girls when I was with Amber, but whatever, they weren't anything. Alex was different. The first time I met Alex, I really, really liked her, really enjoyed her company. And Alex was she was a free spirit. She was a beautiful girl. you know, 5'1", you know, 110 pounds, blonde girl. Man, she's knockout beauty. But she was also just really cool. But she was a free spirit, so she definitely wasn't looking for like a boyfriend. And duh, I already have a gorgeous, fabulous wife named Amber. Like, I'm not looking for that either. But, you know, hey, I guess on some side chicks type stuff, cool. Now, I've always been an overly honest guy, even to a fault. So, of course, Amber knew about it. You know, I told her about it right away. And I even actually had a few instances where Amber and Alex were hanging out. And I was kind of in between them. Were the issues really, you know, but that, I could tell that, you know, Amber didn't like that. She expressed to me a lot of times that hurt her. You know what I mean? You know, but she stayed. Because you know, because she's a really loyal woman like that. But that evolved into, you know, because I didn't really know if I was in love with Alex or not, to be honest with you, because Alex was doing everything for me, and it was just kind of whatever it was. I guess I felt like a pimp, you know what I mean? And Alex was cool, and I just wound up spending a little bit too much time, I think, with Alex. And Amber was pregnant at this point, and I was not there for Amber during her pregnancy the way I should have. And Amber may further touch on that story, you know, but there's a detail in that story that I'm going to leave out, just because it's a little bit more personal. And if Amber, you know, ever wanted to talk about that part, she can, because that part of the story is for her. But I wasn't there for some crucial elements, and I think, you know, bam. So of course there's that chasm, and I can't justify it to myself either later, you know, in my head nowadays, because it was just nonsense. So, and all that for, like I said, Alex, who is a free spirit. I mentioned that. You know, she winds up getting a boyfriend and moving on and not giving two fucks about me, and it just wasn't really worth it, you know. Um, Even though I don't necessarily regret my time with Alex, shout out to you, you're awesome. I just obviously prioritized wrong. So, boom. So that situation happened, and now we have a daughter. Now, before I jump into that, I would like to say, part of me talking about Alex, I said that she did everything for me, like give me all her money and, like, you know. But listen, Amber did way more for me than anybody did. And Amber did meaningful things for me. I mean, you know, of course, you know, like I said in a lot of videos, I was a Mac back then. So, you know, she was definitely financially supporting me. I say that respectfully. And some of my habits at that time. But she also, one of my biggest shows before I became famous, I headlined my own show called Light Up the Valley back in like November 2014, and I had to put up some money for that, like $500. Well, of course, Amber put up the money. Of course she did. Like, duh. That's my man. This is big. And that show was huge. We sold out the building. And the building probably had like a 1,000 person capacity, and they all came for the man Prime. Awesome. Now, Amber was the one that set that up. And I don't know if I ever properly thanked her for that financially or otherwise. Or otherwise. Just thinking about that right now. Because back then I was an ungrateful little bastard. 100. Now, you know, Amber, like I said, I was an ungrateful bastard, just to say the least. Now, there were definitely some great qualities about me back then. Like I said, I had her laughing and smiling, and you know, when there weren't those painful moments, there were some good times. So we have a daughter, a beautiful daughter who looks just, you know, she looks just like me. This is my twin, my best friend. Love that little girl. And I don't remember a whole lot of times of parenting with Amber. You know, a lot of my memories with her are of just me and her. But we didn't do a whole lot of parenting together now that I'm thinking about it. Because I think me and Amber, we broke up. We were on and off, to be honest, just because of, obviously a lot of tumultuousness, us being young and stuff, not knowing really how to work shit out. Um, we had been on and off, but we actually broke up like one final time. I want to say only 3 months after Kinsley was born. And I still remember the night that we broke, that we broke up, like one final time. Um, I had a hard time expressing myself back then. There's a lot of things I want to say right now, but I want to stay focused on the story. So the night that we broke up, I still remember. She had I'm pretty sure I went and picked her up from work like usual because I was a bum with no car back then. Picked her up from work. We had just pulled up to the house. We had lived above right above Bra House because I was hosting for Frankie Shat, and as a part of our agreement, he gave me a free apartment plus money, whatever. So we're living in this little crappy apartment. So we get home. As we're pulling in, I still remember she looks me in the eye, in my eyes with a twinkle in her eyes. Everything we've been through, and she says, "I love you so much. Like I don't know what I would do without you." This is what she said. And on the inside of me, in that moment, even though she had just said that, in that moment, I knew I had to let her go. As crazy as it sounds, everything flashed back in my mind, and how thankful she was for me. In that moment, I had to be a man. I had to be a man. I could no longer be the fraud, the coward that I had been. I couldn't because I knew I wasn't ready to change. I knew I was miles away from being able to change, or at that point in time, I knew it. And as hard as it was, I wound up breaking up with her that night. And I let it be known that I let it be known we couldn't be together anymore. I let it be known. Like it wasn't no, I need to think about it. It was, because like I said, we had some times where we needed some space, and we said some hurtful things or whatever we did, but we always knew we were gonna be back together. But that time, I made sure she knew, and it hurt me a lot. But I just knew I had to do it, and I know it hurt her a lot. And man, I'm sure she's way over me, but I don't know how that affects her to this day. She was so unexpected for her, especially considering what she had just told me. And she didn't understand at that moment. I wonder if years later, underneath all of that animosity, if she's thankful. If she's thankful that I did that. And I hope so in many ways. But she didn't deserve that disgusting brat that she was with. I knew that. And that was one of the genesis moments of DrippMan today. I just thought, hey, there's no way. Because I was always disgusted by a lot of men and a lot of actions that a lot of men took. And I just was too much of a coward to look in the mirror and say, hey, dude, you're one of the perpetrators. And you're hiding behind your words. It's not okay how you treat Amber. And like I said, there's some things that dude, to say I'm not proud of them is crazy. Because Amber's an awesome woman who just deserves to be respected and protected at all times. So anyway, leaving her was the best thing I could have done for both of us, really. Because I didn't have even a financial plan at that time. I didn't even have a car, you guys. Like it's not like I had another girl lined up either. Like I was so depressed at that time. That swag and that charm was off. Like it doesn't matter how beautiful of on the outside you are, especially as a guy. Like if that swag and that charm is off, like especially for a guy as wild as me, like I'm not. It's not like I'm wooing chicks with a $100,000 job and he has great credit and all kid. Like, dog, I got some shit going on. So women normally love me because they're like, oh, he got whatever he got going on. So whatever. So I didn't have that going on. So listen, guys, I didn't have a plan, nothing, and I literally told her to leave, and I just wanted to further illustrate how pure that moment was underneath, you know, you know, I don't know how she would describe that on her side. You know, maybe I'd imagine there'd be some vitriol there. You know, if I place myself in her perspective, especially her not understanding what my thought process was, because I didn't explain it in this type of way how I'm explaining it to y'all, because I didn't know how to do it. Anyway, so we got to move on from that moment. Clearly, Amber, if you are listening, clearly I care. Boom. So we broke up. That was difficult. Now, the thing I got to give myself credit for is I've always been a dedicated communicator, and still have always been dedicated to the women in my life, even if you're not my woman anymore. Like I said, Amber's my second baby mama. You know, at this time I had 2 kids with another woman, you know, for awesome woman for like 5 or 6 years, 2 kids. I've never been on child support or had to go to court because I hold up my end of the bargain regardless. So the great thing, I think, even though it was hard at first, obviously there's a lot of feelings and emotions there on both sides. Because even though I told her to leave, like I wasn't emotionally ready for her to do that. It's not like I had put thought into letting her go prior to doing that. So I devastated myself. So I'm knowing she's going out with other guys, you know what I mean? Because she's beautiful. And again, I'm the man prime back then. You love a celebrity, so everybody loves bragging. You know what I mean? Oh, hey, I was with Amber, whatever. And Amber's having fun at this point. You gotta imagine, like she just went through some shit with a guy that she thought was the love of her life. You know what I mean? It's devastating. So she whatever. Who cares what she did? All I know is it just was hard for me to process. And on her end, again, hard for her to process. We're young also. But through that all, I'm still calling her probably every day, every other day at least. 3, 4 times a week at least. And even though some of the conversations were hard, some was about our baby. And I always still got my baby. You know, there was a few stretches in there for sure. For sure. A few stretches, a couple week stretches where it wasn't as consistent. But no, I've always gotten her. Always got my baby. Always been dedicated. And so, like I said, what could have been a really worse situation, gotta give myself credit, and really both of us credit, because it does take 2 people. Me and Amber have worked hard on our co-parentship, and it's not perfect, but it's perfect for in my opinion. So you know, we navigated through that. I think another thing too, you know, after I really grew up, you know, hey, she has a man who they've been together for actually a long time, a few years. You know, I don't respect him personally as a man. Won't cover that in this video. But from what my daughter tells me, he's nice to her, and I respect that. I don't think he's as involved as probably what he could be. So I definitely want to say that. But and like I said, just a situation that happened between me and him, and so on and so forth. I just don't respect him. I guess I'll. Yeah, I don't want to talk about that in this video. And he's really a minor character. So getting back to Amber, so cool. Her and this guy, you know, they have from what I understand, a solid relationship. And I've never interfered with their relationship. Like that's never been a problem. Um, and I just don't do that. I'm not that baby daddy that wants to show up and fight your boyfriend because you're like, never. So, yeah, so to this day we work there, and we've had some difficult situations. You know, especially recently with my newfound fame. You know, my youngest daughter hasn't really necessarily wanted to see me, even though, like I said, we've had a consistent, usually a consistent schedule. Like I literally had my daughter all summer last summer in 2025, like the whole summer. And by fall, like I said, I'm going viral, and so and the things that I go viral for, um, not the things I go viral for, but my fan base, I should say. My supporters are awesome, but my haters are weird. And so, with me being famous, of course, you know, everybody knows, like, that's your dad. And so, you know, she gets teased about me. Like, let me just be 100%. She gets teased about me. So, now that she's a little bit more older and aware, she's just like, Dad, I don't want to hang out with you. It's kind of like, okay, you have these tattoos on your face, and almost begged me not to put the tattoos on my face one time when she was with me, and she was so disappointed when I did it. And I did go back and forth for a second, and I explained this to her, but I said, hey, there might be a day when you want to be yourself one day, and other people find it outrageous, but you just want to be yourself. And I was like, and I hope you, at the very least, even though you don't like me right now, I hope at the very least you look back at this moment and say, hey, I at least have a basis to be myself, even if somebody that loves me doesn't want to accept me. And I told her, I love you. And if I guess that means I have to miss you, then guess what? I'm going to be calling you every day begging for you to hang out with me, because that's the other element that I wanted to show her, is that's healthy. That's what a man who loves you should do. If you're not happy with what's going on, but especially for a healthier situation like this, because even though it's unfortunate, it's still healthy. A man should still show you that he loves you, even though you all are disagreeing. And so it's important for me to still message her consistently. You know what I mean? And just let her know I love you and I want to get you, I want to see you. There have been some difficult conversations, as you can imagine, with my young daughter, where whatever, but we've kept it together, and that's actually something that I'm still learning from. There were some situations that I mishandled with my youngest daughter that we're working through. So getting back to the story, though, my baby mother wasn't too happy with me, because my daughter didn't want to see me. She did, or it was already difficult for my daughter to want to see me, and then with me having my current schedule, a few weeks or maybe a month lapse, maybe actually where I didn't see her. I had asked her to hang out probably about 4, 5, 6 times, and either didn't get a response or she said no. And I'm not making excuses, but I'm just explaining to you the circumstances. She said no, and then there was just I don't know I'm not really exactly sure what else Amber was expecting, to be honest with you, because in my mind I did everything I could. Now, Amber obviously was having frustrations with that situation still, and rightfully so. Now, she came at me with, some very pointed words. And in that situation, I think a lot of men probably would have became defensive. And long story short, that would have been a situation that would have further divided the family and probably led to that man really never being able to see his kid. And he would have justified it in his head saying, hey, this is because of the situation with her mother. But the way that I handled that situation with Amber, she said, hey, I'm not happy with the amount of times you're seeing her and you're seeing us. And so I just started calling Amber every single day after that. Especially because in my mind it was slightly unreasonable, the exact words she was saying. So I was like, to prove that, I'm not gonna say fuck you, I'm gonna work harder. So I started calling her, messaging her, say, hey, I'm here. And those were just the words I would say. I say, hey, you brought up some valid concerns to me, and I'm here. So, so we worked through that, and now we're stronger because of that. I don't know if we're happier because of that, but we're stronger. And the reason why I wanted to highlight my side of that, because Amber does put in her own work with our relationship too. She probably deserves more credit than me with our co-parentship. But I wanted to highlight that for any baby daddies that might be listening and that might be going through a similar situation. You got to love your daughter more than you're frustrated with the situation with their mother, because you're gonna appreciate yourself for making that sacrifice. One thing I told my Amber, I said, hey, because she was like, yo, why you hit me up like this? I said, hey, which I thought was weird, but whatever. I said, hey, because I don't ever hit her up on no sexual shit. I do give her compliments all the time because she does got it going on, and I do enjoy the thought of making her smile, but that's it. I told Amber, I say, yo, we're still in a committed relationship. We're probably gonna be in a relationship for the rest of our life. She said, what do you mean? Nigga, you tripping. I said, what I mean by that is we had a baby together, which is the ultimate commitment. That's even a stronger commitment than marriage because you can't just divorce somebody from your kid. And I said, so we're in a relationship where we just have different motivations. Instead of there being sexual and romantic motivations, it's just working out for the kid. I was like, so that's why I overly hit you up sometimes. That's why I asked you to, whatever. That's why I am almost like a extra partner, minus all the extra sexual shit. I'm always asking her how she's doing and blah 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 blah. You know what I mean? Like for real, I'll be trying to be her little bestie, and she act like she don't be feeling that most of the time. And hey, it is what it is. But I still look. I'm persistent with it because, like I told her, we're in a relationship still, and you just gotta accept that. And I'm gonna do my best to make sure that it works. It's actually the most committed I've ever been in any relationship. Actually, is to my to Amber still. And like I said, we haven't had we haven't done anything physical for a decade. You know what I mean? Like it's not like that. So yeah, been through some things, and some of the pieces are still jagged. But Amber played a big role in who I am today. I'm still in love with her for sure, like in a healthy way. You know what I mean? I ain't no weird ass nigga. And I think that it's important for me to highlight that aspect too, especially for men. Like, dog, it's healthy for you to still be in love with that woman. Of course you are. Like, she meant a lot to you. She did a lot for you. But, bruh, it just didn't work. It just didn't work. And so you can still be madly in love with her, but still see her be happy. And I think that's the true testimony of if you're really in love with somebody. If you really love somebody purely, you just want to see them happy. There are other emotions that come along with them moving on and stuff like that, but you're happy, and then it was worth it, baby. For me, the only way that it wouldn't have, that I wouldn't feel this way is like, damn, you fucked up, you know. But yeah, she seems happy. So got her own little business, and they got real estate, and I'm just so proud of her. And I normally don't even publicly associate with her out of respect for her. But I wanted to make this video because she's a big part of my story, and I feel like this is the first time that I could actually properly talk about it from a balanced standpoint, because I have so much respect for Amber, and I can imagine that when she initially hears this, she's gonna be like, "What the fuck, nigga?" But I think after she hears the details, she's still gonna probably be like, "What the fuck, nigga?" But deep in her heart, that at the very least she respects it. Just wanted to pay a lot of respect to you, Amber. Express this to her too, so it's not like she's gonna hear this and be like, "Oh my god!" Like I've told her, like, dog, I'm like, you're like, what the fuck? How couldn't I be in love with you still? Like the mailman's in love with you. But I don't tell her that in a weird way. Like I don't know if her man gonna hear this and be weird because he kind of seems like one of them insecure dudes. You know what I mean? Hopefully he's a real man and he hears this and he smiles and he's more proud of their relationship for her sake. I mean, not for him. Like he can piss off. You know what I mean? To be honest with you, you know what I mean? But you know what I'm saying? Anyway, this video has been about my awesome, saucy, lovely baby mother, who I'm lucky to have a beautiful daughter with, who is perfect in every single way, who is not interested in me, probably definitely not as a baby daddy, but you're stuck with me.